Welcome to Monday Mornings with Michelle, the new business podcast. Whether you're kicking off your day or kickstarting your business, Michelle is going to kick your ass into next week with the essential fours: strategy, systems, support, and state of mind. Now, welcome to center stage, Michelle Nedelec.
Hey there, peeps. This is Michelle Nedelec. I am super glad that you're here with us today because I am here with the most amazing guest who's very tenacious. Bruno, thank you so much for being here today and for going through all the hoops you had to get through to get here.
Thank you very much for the invite. I feel very honored to be with you. Thank you.
Nice. So give us a 5,000-foot view of who you are and what you do.
Okay, well, I'm a consultant on international marketing. I'm advising companies on international marketing and also on compassionate business. Over the last few years, we have been advising companies and training companies on how to become profitable and more compassionate. I'm also an author of different books, business books, and some books that are self-development books. And also, I'm a lecturer at university. I'm a professor in marketing and also ethical marketing. And also I'm researching on different topics. I'm very interested in topics such as sustainability, compassion and business, and also the social side of business.
Nice. I love that. So we're going to get into the details of almost all those things as the conversation unrolls, but let's back up the bus a bit and go, how did you get into international marketing?
International marketing, well, first off, before starting as a consultant in international marketing, I started working as an accountant, but was quite boring. And also I worked for many years as an accountant, advising companies on tax, auditing, costs. But then I studied a degree, postgraduate degree in international marketing, and I started advising companies on import-export activities. This was nearly 20 years ago. And how to develop international marketing strategy, how to, for example, penetrate, foreign markets with their products and services. This was very interesting but challenging because most of the companies are, especially medium-sized companies and small companies, are based in the local market and they don't have an international experience. But it was very rewarding from the emotional perspective, from the professional perspective, and also from the economic perspective. I'm still advising companies on international trade, but I try to be much more toward a compassionate entrepreneurship.
Nice. I love that. So with international trade and foreign marketing, I mean, your market is vast. It's almost worse than saying, who do you help? Anybody. So who do you love to work with?
I like to work with a small company with no experience in international marketing. For example, what I see that these type of companies, they are very open-minded, they are flexible. Generally, they are family companies, composed of family members, but they have certain challenges that are difficult to address at the beginning. For example, lack of financing. In international marketing, you need financing. That is very important. In some cases, they don't have the scale. They don't have a big production that could be offered, for example, to fill a container. They don't have also, in some cases, they don't have enough competitive prices. They don't have competitive prices in the way that they can negotiate with big buyers in the international arena. And also, they have many problems, but we try to guide them from the starting point until the end. So in some cases, I took some company that they don't even have a website. So we advise them on how to, for example, develop a multilingual website, but also how to, for example, look for potential buyers in the international scenario, but also what are the main procedures, for example, custom procedure, documentation, certificate, and also aspect related to packaging, cultural differences that vary from market to market. In some cases, adaptation of the product is needed. So it's very interesting, but it's multidisciplinary. I'm not working on my own only, but I'm also in partnership with some lawyers and also logistics specialists. So it's a quite interesting but challenging consultancy project. But I observe that many companies have the fear of becoming internationalized, and they tend to stay safe in their local environment, but the rewards of getting international are very interesting. For example, higher profits, increased sales. In some cases, you have tax exemption. Most countries have tax exemption for export activities. And also you have also economies of scale. This means that you can distribute the cost much more efficiently. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. And I'm very, very keen and very enthusiastic when advising these companies.
That's awesome. So many directions I could possibly take this, of course. So when you talk about increased profitability, is it just because you're going after an American market and their dollars worth more, or are there other factors that you take into account?
Very good point. Well, you increase profitability for the simple reason that you increase the volume of sales. And increasing the volume of sales, because you are covering more than one market. You are diversifying, I call this diversifying, geographically speaking, your sales. Instead of concentrating all the eggs in one basket, you are expanding your sales, and by expanding your sales, you produce more. And most companies have fixed costs, and this fixed cost, for example, renting a warehouse. And this fixed cost, when you produce more and you sell more, and you have a bigger scale, because of becoming international, these fixed costs are distributed much more efficiently between the local market, the domestic market, and the international market. So for this reason, companies get benefits when going international, not only for the international market, but also for the local market. They become more competitive abroad and internally because they increase the scale. And it's like comparing a very small grocery shop and a supermarket. When they get bigger, because of becoming international, they have much more negotiation power, they have more competitive prices, and obviously they have better relationship with suppliers, they get better deals and get more financing from the bank. So it's a very successful strategy when guided in the correct way. But obviously it's not everything that can be painted in a positive way. There are also some challenges. The challenges that companies face, more specifically speaking, are that in some cases they don't know so much about the cultural environment in the international arena. For example, if they are exporting from the United States to a Latin-rooted country like Spain, well, they don't know so much how to adapt the packaging or adapt the promotion or the leaflet or the catalogs. So we need to be very professional and serious when entering countries that are completely different from the cultural perspective. And also in some cases, you have different regulations that vary from country to country that also need adaptation of the material, the packaging, or the content, or the ingredients, or the text that should be on the packaging. So adaptation are always a must. So it's very unlikely that the company sell exactly the same product that they sell in the local market abroad. So for the reason, good professional advice is suggested for this type of company, especially small and medium-sized company. That is my focus.
Nice. I can't imagine for the life of me anybody even trying to go international without having somebody like
it's
you around. You can't even
yes.
send packages across the border without having
It's packaging,
issues, let alone.
But you know what? With the upsurge of internet a few decades ago, it's becoming easier for companies. We have some clients that they didn't even have to make any effort to go abroad. Because of having a very good website design and a multilingual website with the main languages, they were detected by buyers abroad, and we were contacted by these buyers for this company to send some products as a sample to be tested abroad. So the upsurge of internet makes things much easier in the way of promoting the product on a global level. But you have still the challenges that are related to adaptation of products, different legislation that vary from market to market, different economic conditions. Maybe a product that is very successful in a developed country, for example, United States or UK, might not be successful in a country that is less developed. Why? Because you have to sell probably a much more basic version. So no frills probably, and so you have to adapt the product. So adaptation implies costs, And also in some cases, obviously this cost made the product less competitive. So there are many variables to be taken into account. For example, cultural variables, legal variables, economic variables, logistic variables. So it's quite complex, but challenging and interesting too.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you're looking at financing, because obviously if you're going to have warehouses somewhere else and all that kind of fun jazz, are you looking for grants? Are you looking for venture capital? Is there a variety?
No, yeah, this is you have an international trade for a transaction between an exporter and importer. You have different what we call means of payment. Means of payment are a specific way of paying the transaction that are very well used in international marketing activities. International marketing activities, they are mostly based on custom tradition that are guiding the activity between different countries. The means of payment that are traditionally used are letter of credit, and also you have a bank collection. These are the two main ones that you use. You use two banks, one in the country of origin, one in the country of destination. And the banks, in many cases, depending on the means of payment, it's not the same letter of credit that bank collection. For example, in the means of payment, the bank is also acting as an intermediary for the payment. So the importer know that the exporter will collect the money, and the importer will be sure that they will receive the merchandise. So the intermediary, in this case, two banks, are the ones that are guaranteeing the transparency of this transaction. So letter of credit is probably the most well-used means of payment in international trade. Very well used, a bit expensive, but is justified for big transactions.
Awesome. Not the question I asked, but a great answer. And I have another question that leads into that one, is when you're looking at doing international trade, do you recommend doing like a wholesale or retail distribution? Or do you have a preference, or is it depend on?
Depends. Yeah, generally it's wholesale. If you are selling big amounts, so the unit of measure in international trade activity is the container. So it could be 20 feet, could be 40 feet. So this is what we call wholesale, because you're not selling. In the case of activity that I'm involved in with these companies, we're talking about that we're not selling a box, or we're not selling a box that can be sent with, for example, FedEx. That will be much easier procedure, but we're talking about big containers. In order that you have an idea, depending on the product, the container could have 20 tons. So the idea is that we are talking about big amounts. We're talking about, we can call wholesaler, yes. Then the importer generally is a wholesaler, and the wholesaler in some cases sell to a retailer. So there is a distribution channel in the market of destination, and the retailer will sell to the customer. But generally, we don't call wholesale, we call importing volumes, but they are big volumes. For the reason many companies don't reach the minimum that is a container or a pallet. Pallet could be a smaller amount, but it's still quite challenging. Moreover, small companies, a container will represent what they are producing all over a year. So it's quite, for the reason scale is a very important limitation for companies that are getting internationalized. Why? Because they are obviously they cannot reach the minimum volume that is required by these big importers. So that are the most important players in the international market.
And I'm assuming that would be places like Walmart and other ones that are buying on consignment and then distributing or something like that.
Yeah, if Walmart could be, but obviously in the case of Walmart that we're talking about hundreds of thousands of employees, they have their own department. I'm focusing much more on medium-sized company and a small company. They have their own department, their own infrastructure. So they resort to their own advisor. They might not take into account an international external consultant, because obviously they have their own infrastructure. They have, in some cases, they might have branches and subsidiaries abroad. So it's a different type of structure. But for medium-sized companies and small companies, consultants are very common. The consultant is not only acting as an advisor, but as a broker. So it's getting the buyer is like a matchmaker, like a day maker. You have the two candidates and the two potential suitors. You have the importer and the exporter, and these are found by the consultant, in this case our company, and there is a match. There is match, preliminary match. And then obviously we get in contact both parties and we participate in the negotiation. The negotiation is also quite challenging because different countries have different negotiation styles. In order to give you an idea, in the case of United States, time is money. Time is very important. We have to close the deal. In the case of Chinese company, relationships are important. First off, before closing a deal, well, let's try to get to know each other, especially all countries in the South Asia area, like Japan, Indonesia, and other countries, including China. The relationship, because they are countries that are, we call high context countries or cultures, they tend to develop stable relationship, knowing each other at least preliminarily before getting into talking about the economic aspect of a transaction.
Very cool. So what would you say are some of the most popular items that are being exported right now or imported into the States?
Well, with the state, we're doing food, for example, food, we're advising some company from Latin America. And some company from Latin America, for example, Argentina, Brazil, we have a small country there in Latin America, Uruguay, that is also very powerful, and Chile. Well, these are countries that are based on primary production, means that extractive industry, for example, food, cereal, and so on. Well, this is very well requested in some countries like the United States, even United States producing cereal, but I'm talking about manufactured products, food, for example, tea, for example, we're sending juice. We have big production of in Argentina of sugar. So we're talking about basic products that are very well requested in the United States, but also other countries. Here in Europe, we are also bringing some products, food products that are always, you have a guarantee that you will have continuous supply, because obviously people have to eat, and these big food companies are continually buying product from abroad. So here, for example, in the UK, most of the food is imported from countries like European countries and also Latin American countries.
Very cool. Just kind of sort of made me laugh inside thinking, wow, it's been what, 400 years? And they're still bringing food up from South America.
Well, yeah. For example, there is a very famous product now that is being sold in the United States that is originally from the area of South America. It's called mate. Mate that is becoming very popular, and it's a product that is like a very strong tea, and it's drunk with a straw, and it's filtered with a straw, and it's becoming very popular. You will find this in the United States, and all the mate in the United States is coming from Argentina, south of Brazil, and Uruguay, and it's becoming quite widespread.
Nice. I do love a good cup of it. So when people are first looking out for this, are they necessarily taking a product that sold really well locally and they're going, hey, I want to go internationally with this? Or do they go, hey, I got something here and I think it might fit an international market? Do they have to prove themselves first?
This could be deceiving because a product that is popular in the local market might not be popular in the international market. Because we saw that the most important aspect in international market, in international trade, is that you have different cultural, legal, and economic environment, different countries with different. So a product that could be very well accepted from the cultural perspective of the country of origin, this means when the product is consumed and produced, might not be accepted at all because the custom and the values and tradition are completely different. So we have to obviously research always before jumping into the swimming pool, as we say, figuratively speaking, if the product match the preferences, the custom, the values, the tradition in the market of destination. There is also an analysis of the intercultural differences between the country of origin and the country, the target country for our products, the country of destination, the one that will be importing the product. But also, in some cases, a product that is very innovative in the market of origin might not be innovative at all, have been well known in the market of destination. So this means that different countries in the international scenario go at different speeds and different pace. They take different paces. Some countries For example, some product could be very well known, in other countries could be innovative. In some countries, the product is obviously, it belongs to a sector that is very saturated. This means a lot of producers and competitors. In other countries, there are only one or two companies that are, so every market is unique. And you have, depending on the strategy, you have around 200 countries, a bit, some will say 210. So there are many markets. I always advise companies to start with countries that have psychological distance. And what do we mean by psychological distance? Because there are two types of distances in international marketing: psychological distance and geographical distance. Geographical distance, we can say United States and UK are geographically distant. You have the ocean in the middle, quite distant, quite challenging from the logistic perspective, but obviously they have been trading for centuries. So the idea is that is interesting. But what is psychological distance? When a country, with as compared with another country, have a very short psychological distance, this means that they have similar culture, similar tradition, similar values, similar background or shared background. And the example is, for example, you take UK and Ireland, the country Ireland, they have very short psychological distance. But these countries have very short also geographical distance. Instead, UK and Spain, they have short geographical distance, they are very near each other, but they have very long psychological distance. Why? Because different languages, different background, different tradition. One is Anglo-Saxon, the other one is Latin-rooted. So if I had to start, I am in the UK, I will start with Ireland. I won't start with Spain, because I'm more likely to adapt the product when I sell the product to Spain than when they sell the product to Ireland. We'll have less adaptation when the product is sold to a country with short psychological distance than when the country of destination is a country that have a very long, very enormous psychological distance with the market of origin.
And you wouldn't think that there was a kind of a rivalry between Ireland and the UK, where Ireland's going, you know, I'd rather give my money to Spain than England. Does that ever happen?
No, rivalry, we haven't seen rivalry. Here in Europe now, with the Brexit, this changed a bit. But in Europe, countries, they get on well with one another because they have the origin of the European Union is the Second World War. This was searched in 1947 after the Second World War. They try to, even with these disagreements, and you see in the news with all these disagreements, from the trade perspective, they try to keep a very peaceful environment, and they try to make the trade flows go as easily as possible. Now we have some challenge here in the UK with the fishing industry, that we have some problem with the licenses and all so on. But this problem that arise because of the Brexit, they try to keep this as easily resolved as possible to avoid big challenges, because the intra-trade means within the international Europe is quite important. So UK is importing many products from the European Union even after Brexit. Many predicted that the import of international product from the European Union will drop after Brexit, but this didn't happen. So the idea is that this they try to, I don't see rivalry. I see disagreements, and obviously each country have their own interests, but I don't see a conflict that could bring about something belligerent between countries.
Awesome. So what would you say is one of the biggest challenges outside of the geographical distances and the psychological differences? Let's say you have one that's very close, they're similar, and life is grand, then what? Mindset.
I call this international consciousness or international mentality. Many companies do not have the mentality. This is probably the most important factor. Many companies don't see themselves exporting or selling their products abroad or opening a branch abroad. And this is about the mentality. So they are perceived limits, not necessarily real limits. And has been studied a lot by many scholars, but I see this in practice, on a practical level, and this much what have been studied on a theoretical level. The mindset, they believe that is something uncertain, which is uncertain, is really uncertain, but also difficult to attain. In some cases, they focus too much on the difficulties instead of foreseeing the potential benefits. So there are many companies have fear of becoming international, to put it simply, and they adopt an attitude of conformity. Say, well, we are okay in the local market. Why it's too complicated? You hear from entrepreneurs, it's too complicated. It's not for us. We have been doing this always this way. Why changing? So a lot of pretext excuses, and very interestingly, the companies are keeping themselves in a safe situation. This means the local market. But I always tell this company, I always give the analogy of the stock chain market. I also I'm an amateur investor. It's not my primary activity, but I always tell this company, imagine that you are a professional investor in the stock chain market, and you have a big amount of money to invest. Will you develop your portfolio with only one company and invest in, let's say, $100,000 in one share of one company, and share of one company? So we'll concentrate all the money that you have in one share of one company. They told me, of course not. The most important rule in investing is diversification of the portfolio. And I said, we agree on this. And why you are acting in an opposite way in regards with the international activity? Because you are concentrating your activities in this country, let's say the UK or any other country where they're based on. If this country go down, get into a recession, and not all market get into the recession simultaneously, in some cases, some market get into recession, the other one become untouched, all your activity will go down. Instead, when you have your activities, your sales diversified over different markets, if one of the market go down, for example, the market of origin, you have other sales in other markets. So if your own market get into recession, you can continue selling to other countries because you have diversified your activity. And using this analogy, they understand that this is obviously very interesting because obviously nobody would like to concentrate. And also at the same time, these companies believe that they're not internationalized, but they are internationalized in a reactive way because they are competing in their own market with companies that come from abroad. These companies are not going abroad, but in their domestic market, the national market, they are competing with companies, big chains that are coming from another country with their branches, subsidiaries, products, import from another countries. So in practice, I always advise companies to take a proactive attitude and focus much more on the positive aspect that international trade and marketing can bring about. Also, I forgot to mention, improve brand image. When a company is international, not only they get more profit, they get more sales, lower cost, more competitive, and also exemption of certain taxes. For example, export are exempted most countries from VAT. But at the same time, it's not the same a company that never sold abroad that the company that have been selling their products internationally in different countries. The brand image, how the company is perceived by customers, by suppliers, and other stakeholders is enhanced. Why? Because the company is a living proof that they have been entering different markets with different cultural, economic, and legal environment, and they could adapt their product accordingly.
Very cool. So can you give us an example of one of your Cinderella stories? Client that maybe came to you terrified and
okay. Oh, yeah. Well, I have a very good one. Okay, I have a very good one. Well, this was the product was charcoal. I cannot give the name of the company, but I can say that the product is charcoal that is used for barbecue. Okay. This company was based in Latin America, more specifically in Argentina, in the north of Argentina, near the boundary with Bolivia. And this company didn't even have a website. They have an idea of producing charcoal. The charcoal is very well produced in that area, in northwest of Argentina, and very competitive because they have a lot of woods and also forests. So you have a lot of input raw material and also very easy to produce, very low cost of labor. We discussed, so the company didn't have any experience on this. They didn't even have a website. And they have some idea about the brand and they have some idea about the packaging, but very vague idea. We have different meetings, was a family company with no experience, no website. Then obviously I told them that the website was a must to start talking about their product to international buyers. And from, well, I want to not to summarize too much, but from no website, no experience, they started with a container. They sold here to a country, specifically Greece. One container, they started with one container that was like the trial container. Obviously, before they sold, they sent the sample, that was a bag, to test. Before sending the container, they have to adapt a lot the size of the charcoal, because the charcoal that was consumed in Latin America, and specifically in Argentina, was bigger than the one that was, the piece of charcoal was bigger than the one that was consumed in that market. So they have to reduce the size. So there was adaptation. Because of the adaptation, they have to include some additional information in the packaging. The packaging also was printed in 2 languages. And this was also including the website. There were many requirements that were adjusted before sending the first container. We have a lot of feedback from the buyer. This took also many weeks. It wasn't a thing that was resolved immediately. And at the end, well, first container, and then this grew exponentially. So from 1 to 4, 10, and then 24, and it continually growing. So the idea is that companies can do this, and obviously the company is very happy, and I'm also very happy too. But the idea is that companies can do this. At the beginning, the company didn't even believe that they could do this. And I have to act, even I'm not a psychologist, I have to act like a counselor or a coach, encouraging company not to give up, because there were so many challenges. It was very difficult reducing the piece of charcoal, because they have to buy new machinery, and this was not easy to obtain this machinery and so on. And also the packaging was not the material that is common to be used in that area of Argentina. So, but they didn't give up, and it's about persistence too. And then we also, this company, they didn't sell only in Greece, but they started also selling in Portugal and Netherlands. So they diversify also. They started, I always say to companies, small wins. They started with one market, they concentrated, but then they diversified to a second market, and then to a third market, and so on. So many companies want to start and sell their product to the whole world. And if you don't have experience, it's much more. In international trade, what it works is gradualism. We call this progressive improvements, continuous improvement, and it's also in some cases 2 steps forward and 1 step backward, but always persisting and also determined with the objective in mind. And this is a learning process. I call this international journey like a learning process, because companies learn a lot, and also learn a lot not only how to sell abroad, but how to sell their product in their own local market. So there is a very interesting learning process. Companies that were no professional at all, or no big experience, that were acting in a very amateur way, become professionalized and professional, not only in the international arena, but also in the local market. So this improved the company core capability, the skills, and also the image, the brand image is improved.
Very cool. I love it. What made you decide Greece?
Greece, because this was the market that we saw that was suitable for this type of charcoal, but we were not completely right. It was a market that was, the factor that made us decide for this market was the price was competitive for that market at that moment. It's a country that, culturally speaking, they prepare a lot of barbecues, what is very good for charcoal. So this is, yes. the customs are very important. So they have use of this, and also, yes, and this, we thought that this it's not a very big market. It's a very interesting market to test the product before going to much bigger market. So Greece is quite achievable. And also, we took into account also the logistic aspect. So sending container, the aspect of harbors, for example, near Athens, were quite suitable for this type of product. So yeah, there were many factors, but one important factor is the cultural factor. This means that barbecues are very common in Greece, and I went to Greece and it's true. So the idea they consume a lot of charcoal and this type of charcoal, because there are different type of charcoal too, but this type of charcoal are very popular.
That is awesome. So what might somebody be thinking at home right now listening to this and going, oh my God, Bruno, I need you so badly?
What they are thinking?
What are they going through? What kind of stumbling blocks is somebody going through and they're just struggling with it and going, oh my God, I need you?
But they need me. Well, they can find me on the internet.
That's how they get a hold of you. But what struggles do they have in their business that they're just going like, this isn't working?
Oh, okay. The struggles are quite simply classified. The struggles that are, for example, problems with the complexity of international trade operation that include documentation, international negotiation, for example, international trade strategy, what are the potential market to select? Market selection is very important. It's a macro decision. It's before start getting with the specific buyers, how you select the most appropriate market. As I mentioned before about this, psychological distance is a market that could be short. Psychological distance is a very important determinant. And also some companies call me in some cases to train their employees. We have a case of a company in Portugal that a couple of years ago I went to train. They have an export department. They were already exporting, but they needed to know more about certain countries. This company was exporting products, was tile for the floors, and they were exporting a product to the Portugal ex-colonies, for example, Cape Verde, or for example, other countries, Mozambique, and they wanted to know much more how to increase their sales, how to take into account, for example, aspect of packaging that made the product more attractive in the market of destination. And also, well, we went with a group of colleagues and we trained companies on how to market their products much more efficiently. They didn't know so much about marketing, but they knew a lot about logistics, they knew about negotiation, but we explain how they can make the product much more distinctive as compared with other competitors that are selling their product in that market. And this was quite successful. This was in-house training. So in-house training also, I'm doing some in-house training. And in some cases, well, I'm giving also some talk for entrepreneurs, for example, association or sector. Generally, they look for me when they need also some ideas or insight on international marketing or any other of my specialism.
Nice, love that. So if somebody is listening and they have an association, maybe they just have business that they want to take internationally, how would they begin their journey with you?
Well, they can contact me, of course. They can contact me. Generally, they can contact me. I have two websites. The one is called bruno.cignacco.com.
We will have that in the notes. Don't even try to spell that.
Okay.
Scroll down to the notes, people, and you'll find Bruno's information.
Okay.
It's all good.
Okay. Well, they can find me.
Or the other
easily.
website? What's the other website?
The other website is compassionatebusiness.com.
Awesome. We will also have those in the notes for you. So yes, fear not, we will have ways for you to get a hold. And I'm assuming on your websites, it's just contact us, or is there any kind of fun and exciting things that people can do to see whether or not they're ready for international trade?
Yeah, they can. Yes. But obviously they can contact me through LinkedIn. Also, I have some clients that came through LinkedIn, so this is very common for them to contact me. Okay. Yes, but obviously we have to analyze every situation, and we generally take clients only when the clients meet certain criteria. For example, that they have an existing product and they have business idea or business model. We cannot discuss this.
Awesome. Okay. And let me ask you this. We're almost wrapping up soon, but I got to know, at what point in life did you know that you were a special kind of crazy enough to think that you could become an entrepreneur?
Well, this was a couple of years ago. We're talking about years, we're talking about 20, 25 years ago. I thought that this was an interesting idea to become an entrepreneur in a way that having a company that could train other companies, that could deliver consultancy services. And I didn't want to retain my knowledge, but to apply my knowledge to different specific business cases and to help companies, especially we are focused on medium-sized companies and small companies, on what is internationalization or social entrepreneurship. And we find that this is a very interesting area that has a lot of potential.
Nice. I like that. So going heart first. That is fun. So thank you very much for your time, Bruno. I appreciate it immensely. And again, I appreciate your tenacity coming through time and time again. Any last words for our peeps before we let you go?
Well, last words, we can say that companies have to know that business is not only about profits and about sales and about reducing costs. These are very important aspects. And I always say that this is probably the most important focus for most companies. However, there is a very important aspect of business that many companies are dismissing, that is the relational aspect of business, which implies developing a strong relationship with, for example, in the case of international trade, with international buyers or with employees or with suppliers. And this is quite important. Many cultures, like, as I mentioned, South Asian culture, take into consideration the relational aspect. But here in the Western Hemisphere, we see that companies are only focused on what can be measured, what can be counted, like a profit, market share. And if you don't develop a strong relationship with different stakeholders that are the base of any international transaction or local transaction, all these indicators will tend to wither. So why? Because all these indicators are based on strong relationship, long-lasting relationship with the stakeholders.
Sage advice. That is awesome. Thank you. So, peeps, this is Michelle Nedelec. Thank you for being here with us today. If you know anyone who would make a great guest for the show, or if you have a question or a topic that you'd like me to discuss, reach out to me at michelle@awarenessstrategies.com or connect with me on LinkedIn or Facebook. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for listening to our show. I am all about being a resource center for entrepreneurs to give them the information and the support they need to make it in business. As such, I have Taking Your Business Digital Q&A every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Mountain. To register for that, go to awarenessstrategies.com/digital. That's DIGITAL. I look forward to meeting you and actually finding out how you are. So see you on the flip side.